Thinking about changing your thinking? If you are, stick around. If you're not thinking about changing your thinking, here's the reason why you should. Coming up. If you're new here, this is Peasant Uprising, where I connect with you and I help you rise up from that rough upbringing. Today, we're going to talk about changing your thinking and the reasons why you should probably start to think about changing your thinking. It's a lot of thinking. Why should you change your thinking? The truth is, most of us don't realize our initial standard response to a situation can actually be something that is holding us back. It might take an event or a series of events to occur before we begin to realize that our instinctual response, or the response that we've been kind of trained or told, or our standard response would be something that we learned over time through our environment and our experiences growing up. That initial response can be something that is holding you back from making really positive changes. Now, an example of this in my life would be negative thinking. Growing up, everything was really rough. There was lots of situations that didn't work out, and there were plenty of times where it felt like just everything is impending doom and nothing's ever gonna square up and be just fine, you know. That kind of conditioned me to think in more of a negative outlook on a lot of new opportunities or a lot of new situations. So I would shy away from those and just assume it's going to work out in a bad way. Even when I didn't think necessarily it was going to work out in a bad way, or I felt like, well, that's really tough, maybe it's not going to work out the way I think, it was still playing a role in my overall tone and approach to that situation. Without that happening, we are able to actually progress further and be more open-minded to new situations and positive change. Essentially, what we're talking about here is undoing a lot of that conditioning, either the self-conditioning that we've done, or the environmental, or the social aspect of our conditioning. We're trying to undo those layers.
Layers! Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
And cause ourselves to get to a point where we are more able to accept new opportunities and really respond in a productive manner to allow us to actually achieve the things that we're trying to achieve. Now, one of the downsides to this scenario is that we might not, or most likely, don't realize that we're doing this. It's sort of a repetitive process that is automatically innate about a situation. Something happens. Your response kicks in immediately. And then the outcome is whatever it is based on that response. Even if it's an outcome out of your control, your reaction and your response dictate how you're going to feel later on, which in turn is going to change your outlook on that situation and potential future situations down the road. So what you have to do is begin to stop that initial response, take a step back, and look at what is actually happening and how you can remain positive, or see opportunities, or look at it from a different perspective and understand that you can skirt around that situation and be just fine. Too often, we aren't even aware that that is happening. That's just the initial response, and oh boy, everything sucks. And that's really what gets us stuck in this repetitive loop of, I'm just always gonna feel this way, it's always gonna be crap, and all these situations are always gonna be this way. And that's what prevents us from moving up and going where we want to go. If you're not already focused on that, if you're not trying to make a change, or even if you are, but you're getting stuck, you may not realize that this is happening. So you have to kind of really take a moment or take some time and come back, around to this type of thinking kind of repeatedly, and realize your initial response might not be the best one to help you make that positive change. Now, everybody's initial response is going to be completely unique to them. However, a lot of people have similar responses. Like, I used to be really negative about things. A lot of people are. And it's hard to undo that initial response because it's innate, it's built in, it's conditioned, it's learned, it's there all the time. If you really want to be successful, and you really want to feel better and change your life, you really have to look deep inside and understand how your responses really create your future. Now, you might ask, well, how the heck do I do that? If I wasn't even thinking about this before, I'm certainly not going to know how to just fix it. What you can do is begin to do some experiments with certain situations. Now, it's going to require a little bit of effort on your part, but positive change does. If this was an easy process, everything would be peachy for everybody. Everybody would be happy. There'd be nothing but positivity. We wouldn't have, a discussion about it. It would just be there. Begin to think about the next time something you would typically have a negative response to immediately. Think about how you used to think about that situation, and now begin to contemplate how you can react differently. So let's say you get the power bill in the mail, and holy crap, it's $450, and you're at, scraping for pennies already. Now that's a rough situation. Obviously, that's going to be really difficult to deal with. How are you going to get through? How are you going to make it to the end of the month? Things like that. Speaking of that, I have a video here where I talk about ways you can actually reduce your power bill. So check it out. So you get that power bill and it's like, boom, pay me some money. And you're like, I'm broke. How am I going to do this? And let's say your typical response is to get mad at the power company and get mad about the situation and just, bro, I can't handle this. It's always so expensive and gosh darn it. So when you get that, your initial response, let's say, is negative, and you get upset, pissed off, start throwing curse words around. That's understandable in that situation because it's something that came out of the blue and it's really hard to deal with. Now, being ultra negative and really getting upset, blaming the power company, blaming this, blaming that, isn't necessarily going to help you get through that situation, get you to a point where you can secure the funds that you need to, make it through and not have the power shut off. You want to combat that initial response and say, it is what it is. How am I going to do it? You don't have to be not upset about it, but look at your response to that initial situation and essentially allow yourself to be open-minded to opportunities to allow you to then take care of that huge lump sum that, showed up out of nowhere. Those types of situations, that's where you can begin to experiment with this and see, this is what I used to do, this is what I'm trying to do, this is how I'm going to react now, and see what improvements come from that. In order to make the positive change, you have to recognize these patterns, these negative patterns, these patterns that aren't necessarily productive for you. You have to recognize them, and then you have to make a game plan or make a plan to change them. So through this experimenting, you can look at different situations that you would normally react this way to and have a planned reaction or a planned approach that is going to be different from the norm, and you can then look at how that situation affects you differently now that you change your response. So once you get some experience under your belt, you can then work on larger situations and you'll begin to see that progress. You'll begin to have more and more experience with it. You'll soon be peeling back those layers of learned behaviors, of conditioning, and begin to actually be more open to these new positive changes. If you're getting value out of this video, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Slap that bell notification so that YouTube will notify you of my next release. Go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys about this. and you're welcome to share this video with anybody that you think will benefit from it. Thank you guys for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one. So, you might be wondering what these are about. So today, my wife and I actually found out the gender of our new baby. I haven't announced that we were expecting, but we have been. She's about 4.5, 5 months along at this point. I've kept a lid on it pretty good. And I'll tell you guys what the results are. Blue, baby. It's a boy. That is awesome. I'm excited beyond belief. My wife is too. She thought it was a girl. I thought it was a boy, but there's been a pattern of girl, boy, girl throughout both of our families. So I was actually thinking, well, even though I feel like it's a boy, it's going to be a girl. You know, the pattern is going to be the pattern. Change your thinking. And what do you know? Boy. Alright guys, thanks for sticking around. I'll see you in the next one.